right, we'll go
Just
ahead.
1 second here,
Oh,
and
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I got the message saying it was on YouTube.
On my end, it just says setting up, redirecting. Okay, I think we're good now.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call to order the April 27th Franklin City Schools Board of Education regular meeting. Dr. Sander, if you can call the roll.
Mr. Nipper,
Present.
Mr. Sizemore,
I'm here.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Here.
Mr. Fleming,
Here.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Here. All right, and now we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Craig, are you putting the graphics on there for us?
You know, I don't have the graphic. Amy, last minute had a problem with her internet, so she said, Craig, you're hosting. So
All
I do
right,
not
guys.
have an image ready to go.
All right, well, do we want to sit down and do it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sure, that sounded great. All right, now we'll go to adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
I just want to make sure everybody has the deletion of a executive session. Make sure everybody's aware of that in case they looked at an old copy. That was deleted earlier today.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Nipper and second, Mrs. Raleigh.
Aye.
Dr. Sander,
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
yes.
Okay.
All right, next up we have recognition of public guests and participation. Do we have any comments? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with the cross-country presentation from Mr. Bales.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
What I would like to propose for cross-country is, right now currently we have one paid varsity coach for cross-country and we have one paid junior high coach. The program has done an outstanding job of building the program up with a number of participants. For example, in 2015, we had for multiple years from about 2013 to about 2017, we were anywhere around 6 boys to 4 or 3 girls. Last year, we had 12 boys at the high school level and 11 girls, for a total of 23 boys and girls that were running cross country. Projected numbers for 2020 with kids that are coming back that do not graduate, or for 8th graders coming up, we have 15 boys projected and 18 girls for a total of 33 student athletes. You have to have 5 runners, boys, to have a team, and 5 runners, girls, to have a team, according to Ohio High School Athletic Association. So you have to have 5 to be counted as a team and be able to participate in the state tournament. What I would like to propose is that we add a high school girls coaching contract for a head girls coach. And looking at the supplemental scale, it looks like this coming year for 2021, that would be $3,311. And then for 21-22, it would be $3,394. I know a few years back we had a similar situation with golf, where we had a few girls out and they would just play with the boys. We didn't have a girls coach. And now our girls golf team, was up to like 7 girls last year. We actually have a head girls golf coach and then a head boys golf coach. So that would be my proposal for cross country if possible.
And just so the board knows, if this is a desired way to go, since supplementals are through the union, I would need to speak with Teresa Anderson Weaver to see about an MOU that would take care of that. We don't, and they would have to approve that first before I would bring it to the board. So I just need to know whether it's something you would want me to broach with Ms. Anderson Weaver. And also a question I would have, Mr. Bales, are you saying to eliminate the JV or the junior high coach and just have one varsity each, or still have a junior high cross-country coach?
I'm having a hard time hearing on my phone. Could you say that one more time? I don't know if my sound's messed up.
That's okay. Can you hear me better?
Could you say that one more time?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Brian, if you're on your phone, maybe you should put it on speaker so you can hear.
Okay.
Okay, Brian, can you hear me?
Oh, Craig. Oh, good job there. Yeah, I can hear you great
Okay.
now.
My question to you is, are you proposing one boys coach and one girls coach, period? Or are you proposing one head boys coach, one head girls cross-country coach, but then also maintain the one junior high coach?
Yeah, that would be what I would propose, is a high school boys head coach, a high school girls head coach, if and when we have at least 4 runners. I know back in 2015 we did not, but then have one junior high head coach. Asking around to other ADs in our league, that would be very similar to what schools in our league do, give or take. I think Eaton had a total of like 6 paid cross-country coaches, but they have a huge program.
Any other questions or discussion? Are there volunteers that currently help out with cross country, Brian?
Yeah, that's a great question. This past year, we have a really good running family. I don't know if you guys know Bob Bond. Their kids run. One of the runners is at the junior high. He has a son that's in the high school. And Bob Bond, who owns Bond Machine Shop there in Franklin, he volunteered and helped. He would actually be probably the guy I would want to hire for the girls' job. He's outstanding. His junior high son, I don't think he's ever lost a junior high cross country match. I think the dad ran at Ohio State, maybe Marshall before that, but he would be a guy that I would really want to bring on as the girls' coach. I think he would be awesome.
Okay, thank you. All right, is everybody fine with Mike taking that to Teresa?
I'm fine.
Yep.
Okay, all right, Dr. Sander, if you can take care of that.
I will do that.
All right, thanks again, Mr. Bales.
Thank you. Could I bring up one more thing on a side note with cheerleading?
Yeah.
Just want to kind of keep everybody in the loop with cheerleading and tryouts. It's kind of been a hot topic around the league. And at this point, we are going to try to do tryouts in June. If we are able to get in a gym, which I don't think is going to be highly likely, and if that is the case, we may have to look at doing some kind of tryouts online, which most of the schools in our league are doing. But I just kind of wanted to keep everybody in the loop, as that's kind of been a hot topic in the old cheer program.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, it looks like everything is virtual at this time for tryouts that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, school facilities aren't open for the activities.
Yeah. The concern that I guess I've heard from actually being the parent of one of the coaches is that the facilities that they have available for tumbling and what our risk might be as far as having kids do tumbling at home and maybe less than ideal situations, trying to put that on video versus doing it on the mats like we would do it in a normal situation. So I think that was the concern some of the coaches were talking about.
I can't really understand you, Chris.
What Chris was saying, Laurie, was he was difficult, but what the concern is from some coaches, and Chris, correct me if I misheard, is that there's concern about safety issues with the videotape if the people trying out are doing tumbling at home instead of in a controlled gym on mats where they would, if they fell, they would have some spotters maybe, or just at least have that cushion of a mat. And that's a concern, safety concern, worried about maybe some liability with that. Is that correct, Chris?
He says.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Laurie.
What was that, Lori?
No, nothing. No, I didn't mean that they wouldn't be at the gym. I just said that the most of the class that I'm seeing in other districts is done virtually. You know, I didn't take it. I don't know about the tumbling and the gym. That's a valid point Mr. Sizemore brought forth. Certainly, you wouldn't want the girls hurt trying out because of lack of equipment.
Right. Maybe that's something we can monitor as we kind of move toward the summer. If we're looking at June, we've got some time to keep an eye on it.
Right. I agree.
So basically, I guess
Just real quick with that one thing, if we do it in June, I think if girls are on vacation or their families are out of town, they should be given the option to do it online. Since the dates are coming out so late, I don't want girls to get penalized, would be my only concern.
Right.
I think it's something we need to be sensitive to. I agree. Just because it's unique, we just need the coaches to be flexible. In my opinion, because of the situation we're in is an unusual situation. And we want the bottom line is to be fair to all the girls or guys, whoever's trying out.
Okay. Any other discussion on that before we? Oh.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I think we can move on to superintendent's recommendations.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. River, did you want to go to the high school graduation first and then go to my recommendation? So for Mrs. Fromm's benefit, or?
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can go out of order. That's fine. I forgot about that.
It's up to you. I mean, I can go through mine quickly, but we had just talked previously about maybe bumping that up.
Right. Anybody have a problem with modifying the agenda a little bit to move the graduation discussion up?
I do.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm good.
Okay, so who wants to start this discussion?
Okay, I thought I would start off. I know that, Ms. Wolfenberger, when we talked, I did express to you information that Mrs. Fromm was getting from parents is that they would like to have a later, their preference would be to have a later graduation, but be able to have unlimited occupancy. That was prior, and also there was the different areas had some time sent. Kings is wanting to do the Cintas Center in August. Lebanon and Little Miami doing July, and also the Career Center have originally had dates at July at the Nutter Center. Springboro, June 27th at the Nutter Center. Carlisle was looking at July and so forth. So, but then what happened, what threw a big wrench into everything is then ODE came out and talked about having a virtual graduation is what their recommendations are. Since that came out, and since I knew this was a discussion topic tonight, I did ask the questions of the other Warren County superintendents. Here's what I know now is that and if anybody has up-to-date information, please holler. The Career Center is doing a virtual celebration of seniors on May the 20th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live, and this was their original graduation date. Springboro is doing a virtual celebration on the 23rd of May, which is also the original graduation date, but still holding on to our rebooked date at the Nutter Center, even though they realize that actually having that activity is highly unlikely. The Mason has always been looking at a virtual graduation, and they're continuing to look at a virtual graduation on May 24th at 2 p.m. And then what they were talking about doing was trying to have some way that maybe the students can come back together in August, but not sure about that. Larry Hook in Carlisle, March 6th, nope, that's not it. Here he is. They're planning on a virtual graduation, not 100% sure what that will look like, and they're going to hold their date in July just in case. Kings is holding their dates at Cintas, but doing a virtual graduation. Little Miami is holding on to their July 20th date at Nutter Center, but doing a virtual commencement. Going down to, I think I did here, the only one is one of my, oh, here it is, Lebanon. Lebanon's hosting a virtual graduation on May 16th. They're going to hold on to their July 31st date at the Nutter Center. And if they're permissible at that time, they'll hold a commencement ceremony. Then the question came up, how are you doing virtual? That was from Larry, or the students coming in and so forth. And what these school districts are talking about are speeches in the program being pre-recorded with individual student pictures, then put out on the media channel, most likely Facebook, and they're using the pictures that they submitted for the yearbook. Little Miami said, Lebanon said the same as Little Miami. Mason said speeches and program pre-recorded using senior pictures submitted to the yearbook. They're still working on trying to figure out how to have some live moment. So what they talked about was lining up the students so they can come through one at a time, get pictures taken, and go out. But when you have over 800 graduates, that could take quite a bit of a time. Kings is looking to put together basically a virtual like the others. And that's what I've gotten so far. So.
Yeah, and Mike and I have been talking about this. The issue I have with pushing it out is, we've heard so far it's very unlikely that there's going to be able to be mass gathering throughout the summer. The second part is I feel like they kind of need some finality and feeling of completion at some point that's in line with the normal date that we graduate. If we keep things hanging out, not only do we have that issue I just mentioned, or issues I just mentioned, but also we have people going into the military. I know I saw one on Facebook, a parent that was talking about her son going in July. I know there are vacations that people have in June, July, August. So I personally, I just don't think that's a good option, pushing it out. The virtual option, again, I don't know that our students want to do that or if that's ideal. I think it's going to come between that and Mike and I have started a discussion about if there is a possibility on our June 5th date to do something at the field. And I've done some math. I mean, we have 212 graduates. If you have 2 people per graduate as, relatives, parents, whatever it is, that's going to be 636 people that we would have to manage, not counting administration, board, that kind of stuff. If you increase the number of relatives, obviously that number goes up. So for example, if you have 4 relatives per person, in one ceremony, we would have to manage 1,060 people, which I don't know any way to do that, even at the field, with the social distancing guidelines. So I'm throwing this out because I don't know that it's a viable option, but maybe having a few smaller ceremonies at the field, obviously that's going to be a little bit more work, but we could cut things that aren't necessary or are not absolutely necessary and try to streamline it to make it more efficient. But again, with that, the kids, you know, you may not be with your friends that you want to graduate with. So Kelly, has that come up at all, that discussion?
I've not heard anybody doing it in chunks. I've heard it's either going to be they're doing some sort of awards or virtual around their original date and then putting something on the calendar for that end of July, beginning of August, at least to give people hope, even if it's false hope. I think what I'm hearing from our parents is they'd at least like to know that we've exhausted that option, that there is a chance we could do something in person, even if it's at a later date. And then if we have to cancel it, they're okay with that as long as they feel like we've tried, kind of thing, is what I've heard from parents. But we talked today to Craig and Amy, and our plan as of right now is to do like senior awards as like a press conference on May 15th at 1 o'clock. So we're going to do like a little Mike DeWine spoof and do senior awards live stream on YouTube. And that would have been their original graduation date. So they'll know all their scholarships and everything that date. If we wanted to do a virtual graduation on June 5th, or even like you said, one at the stadium, I like both of those ideas. I think if we're outside and we limit it to 2, we might be okay, because even those 2 people, they live in the same household in theory. Right. So you'd have 2 people in a cluster and 2 other people in a cluster. So I think if we did that, we could spread those people out enough and maybe get the whole class together. And you got to remember, all 212 of those kids aren't walking. I don't know off the top of my head, but I would imagine we're only going to be walking in the 180s if I had to guess. That's we usually have about 20 to 30, and then we're doing it later. That might change that as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would be nice to know who's walking, but even like I was trying to do some math, like even if you have let's say 2 people come, even if you're linear, like you're out like this, having 6 feet on both sides, that's 300 feet across, not to mention front and back. So I'm just trying to figure out, and we have to manage it too. You got to manage ingress, egress of those people and keep them separated as well. Right. Maybe it's viable. I just wanted to try to, and I think Mike definitely did as well. I wanted to look at all those options. But I'm wondering if we kind of need to know who would walk if we were able to do something like that.
Well, we're going to make diplomas available the week of May 18th, regardless, because that's when they would have graduated. So for those military, those sorts of things, I've already had a couple kids reach out to me. They would come get them that week. So that week, as they start coming in to get their diplomas, we can say, are you going to walk or not? And we would keep their folder. So we would have something to hand them at a ceremony and just give them their physical diploma. I could also do a Google form right now. If we decide this is the date we want to do it, tomorrow I can do a Google form that gets a head count. That's easy enough. And they've been really good about checking their emails and stuff.
Yeah. And I was reaching out to people too. And of course, I got a call back as we were sitting here. But I don't know, what does everybody else kind of think?
Well, let me play devil's advocate here a minute. So if we have it outside and you say June 5th and you say possible mini ceremonies, then we'd have to have 2 days because of rain.
Right.
And then we would be the only school, from what I'm hearing Mike saying, that would be going against ODE's recommendation of doing a virtual graduation. Does that give us any liability? And how would we police at the
I just so you know, I appreciate you bringing it up. I contacted Bill Dieters today and talked to him about the thoughts. He said that there's not an official legal opinion as far as what to do from that standpoint, because it's a recommendation from ODE. But he said, unless there is just this really, really strong feeling from the board that we need to have something in person that early, he suggested we do a virtual one until there is a different sort of a recommendation from ODE. He thought that was the most prudent course of action.
And that's fine. We can only do what we can do. I just want to make sure we're at least talking about those different options.
Of
Or you
course.
guys-
And my thing is, I just would like the board to know, if something happens, we do a virtual and the board would still desire to have something later in July in person, and not everyone can make that. I believe the community will understand. It's kind of like the cheerleaders. We got to hang and fluff because of this unusual situation. If we had it on our regular graduation date, I believe that they know that every board member would be there. But they also know board members pre-schedule other things, whether it's work or whether it's a vacation. And, if you can't make it, you can't make it, sort of a thing. And I think if we just explain that, if not everyone can make it, if we explain that prior to that, somebody sends their regrets, but this was already prearranged and with the coronavirus and late graduation was unable to attend. I think that's all that needs to be said, and I think that the community would appreciate that and understand that.
I'm not too worried about us. I mean, we don't really
Well, I worry
matter. I'm worried about
because, you've got
kids
things you have to do.
being able to go.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
dates that Mike and I talked about, and I talked to Michael about it, I know the first or the only board meeting in July is on that Monday, July 27th. That's the date of your guys' July board meeting. We were thinking maybe we could try to do something that Friday at the stadium. That would be July 31st with a rain date of either that Saturday or Sunday. That way, most families are, hopefully if we have fall sports, are back in town by then because fall sports start that week. Hopefully you would all be in town because we have a board meeting that week. And we would just do it at the stadium and try to get the kids before they leave for school or the military, as many as we could. And hopefully by then, even if we still had to limit it to 2, we could at least give them some sort of in-person ceremony.
Well, and actually, Mrs. Fromm, I would recommend maybe that Thursday in case there's
Either
a plan.
way,
Some
yeah.
people
Go out of
some
town
people
for the
may
weekend.
may have scheduled to leave after work on
Yep.
Friday. That if we did a Thursday, that might be more viable.
Yep. And we could just have a backup date at some point, maybe that weekend or maybe that Sunday afternoon in case Thursday doesn't cooperate for weather. That's just an idea. That would give us and keep us in line with the Career Center. Their tentative date is July 22nd. So for like caps and gowns and things like that, they'd have the Career Center kids would have their cap and gown, and then they could
It's a
turn it
great
in after our
idea.
ceremony.
It's a good idea, and it doesn't hurt at all to have a backup day. But I agree with Rachel about, that feeling a date of completion, a finality of near our actual date of graduation as possible, even if it would be virtual. I think that that would be in everyone's best interest to keep it as close to that date that they've been planning for a year, in advance for that day. And I think we could pull something together then, but I mean, you're already saying that you've taken that day for senior awards.
Well,
Is that
because
correct?
Well, that was, Ms. Roy, that was one in the afternoon. We could, if it's the desire of the board, I can work with Kelly and the high school staff, and realistically, probably Life Touch, I think, works in that area, Mr. Fromm, if I'm not mistaken. So we could see about having a virtual graduation that was originally scheduled for, I think it was 7 o'clock that night, but we could actually maybe do a virtual graduation on the 15th at 7 o'clock at night. We just, if that's the direction we go, we kind of need to know so we can start working on that very quickly.
I mean, I don't know if at this
I
point, I don't know if I could get programs and stuff done by then for that date.
What do we have to
Well,
do,
we can
June
see
5th
what we can
then?
do.
I mean, I'm just saying we could get them at a later date, but I don't know if I could have programs printed with not having Tammy having been in the office and things like that. There's a lot of things that have to be done. We can do it virtually, but it wouldn't have the program and some of those other things that we normally do if we do it on the 15th.
And I was thinking we'd have to have a videotape of the course.
Speeches.
Usually the senior course does something. Mrs. Fromm, you give a speech. I know
I might be able, if I have information, get the programs.
I can't hear.
I did that for
Yeah.
Hall of Fame within
Yeah,
24
yeah.
hours. I
Okay,
have
Yeah,
if I had the information,
Listen.
I may be able to get the program.
okay.
so
I
I
did
would
it
say
for the
Mrs.
Hall of
Fromm, if-
Fame, right, Brian?
I think I'm having
Yeah,
trouble hearing
that
you,
got turned
Lori.
around very quickly. I think. The Hall of Fame program, she's got a connection that could get the
Oh.
they got the Hall of Fame program done within 24 hours. We could possibly use that same connection, and so we could try that. And Mrs. Fromm could see about getting, if this is the direction we want to go, then we could have Mrs. Anderson come in and whatever staff Mrs. Fromm needs to get that taken care of. That's fine. We will do absolutely everything, like I said, to get that done. If that's the desire of the board, then we would probably have to hit up Mrs. Raleigh for the connection for the program.
Right.
So is that, I mean, I guess that's fine if that's what we want to do. We will make it work. It's going to be a lot of logistics to try to get ready by the 15th for a virtual ceremony, but we will make it happen.
Well, how many, I mean, let's see here. How many weeks out is June 5th is only 3 weeks out from the May 15th date, like the backup date we had?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would that be, what do you think about that? It's instead of May 15th? I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to throw out options and make sure we've got enough time to do what you guys need to do.
You know, a lot of our scholarship timelines were pushed out.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like, that's why we pushed back awards.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's just been a lot of things that had already been pushed back. Like the 15th was going to be awards, and then we were thinking graduation more of that June 5th date, just because of other timelines that had been pushed back and staff not physically being in the office. But like I said, we will do whatever the board wants to see happen.
Well, since we're doing it virtually, what about maybe the 22nd, a week later on the 22nd, since it's virtually? Because remember, we couldn't. That's not Labor Day weekend.
That's the Friday of Memorial Day weekend.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't want that. Maybe we could do it like Thursday the 21st or something. Because I know everybody likes to avoid Memorial Day weekend, so we could maybe do it Thursday the 21st. That would give us an extra almost a week for that.
I mean, we have the diplomas. That's the most important part. They're
Mhm.
ready to go. So everything else, I mean, everybody's kind of doing this on the fly right now. So I think people will give us grace. We just need to, I feel like at this point, we just need to give people a date. And whatever that is, we can do whatever it is to get the work done to make it happen. Craig, if we did that virtually, would you want to do that like we're doing this now on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, we could do the same thing. Absolutely.
Okay. So we'd like live broadcast from the high school, maybe auditorium.
Sure.
And then we'd have those things recorded. Maybe I could be there, maybe a couple other, maybe Rachel as the board president or whoever else. If we social distanced on the stage, we could have a handful of us there in person and then take it from there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I guess it would be nice.
I don't know if it being virtual, that the entire board needs to be there, because what you're going to do is you're going to have a recording of the senior choir singing.
Like coming back to that, there is no senior choir. They can't practice. So they didn't even try out, like the music will be nil if we do virtual. We could maybe do some pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I didn't know if there's pomp and circumstance you play a recording or something.
Yeah.
On that.
I mean, why would we be in person? Like, why would there be a live stream if we were just doing virtual?
Well, what they're doing, what other districts, you wouldn't have to be, what other districts are doing is taping like Mrs. Fromm's speech, and then would play that virtually. And then as you know, how we always have a couple teachers elected by the senior class, to call the names, I guess they would get the name called and you showed the senior picture that they submitted for the yearbook and for the senior composite.
Is the name call, was that pre-recorded too, though? Wouldn't it all be pre-recorded?
I think it'd all be pre-recorded. Yes,
Okay,
it's
I just wanted to
when you
make sure I was
actually play it.
understanding. Okay.
Yes. That is my understanding how the other districts are doing it. They just simply play it at that time.
So then who pieces all of that together?
Life Touch, I believe, was working to do sort of that, some of that. We may have to contract out to do that.
Okay, I know Jostens was doing virtual graduations. We don't have a contract with Jostens. Our contract is with Graduate Services. So I can reach out to Graduate Services to see if they're doing
Yes,
something like that.
that's what to say.
Okay,
Reach out to Graduate Services. Yes.
but I guess the one thing I need to know is the date. Like I can make all these things happen, but I just need to know the date.
I mean, I personally, I don't care if we do May 15th or June 5th, because we had kind of both dates. So I'm fine with either one of those dates. And June 5th is only a couple weeks after.
You need to unmute yourself, Chris. Mr. Sizemore, you're muted.
Oh, was Chris talking this whole time?
Yeah,
Chris,
Chris,
you're
both
muted.
your phone and your computer are muted.
Come on now. Okay, so if we did the 22nd, that would be Memorial Weekend, but the 29th is also in there where you would have extra time.
So that Friday, the 29th, we could do that.
Yeah, the reason June 5th was a backup is because we could get the same venue.
That's when we could
as
get,
the
Right.
16th. Yeah.
But no, originally
So-
June 29th was one of the dates I'd asked for the church that it wasn't available. So the 29th would work of May.
Hey, Chris, I did unmute your phone mic, so can you hear us now?
Okay.
Or
Bob,
Okay.
Lori,
Yeah.
Andy, any objection to the 29th?
No, I'm fine with the 29th.
29th's good.
At 7 p.m. still, you want to do it in the evening? Like have it broadcast in the evening, or does that matter?
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know that it matters. Whatever you guys want to do is fine with me.
Because once we put it out there, they can start it at any time if it's recorded.
Right. So maybe Kelly, if you, it doesn't sound like we really have any issue with whatever
The
time it starts.
29th works for us.
Right, so if you
Morning.
want to decide on the timing that it goes, I think that's fine.
Okay, so
I
let's
think
do,
maybe make it, Mrs. Prom, I think maybe make it available at 7 o'clock so that
Yep.
that's kind of graduation time. They can all get together. So if we do it during the course of the day and people work and people may not be able to enjoy it together, but 7 o'clock at night, maybe the families can get together and do it all at the same time.
and that will be
Um,
our
and then the
official
other thing
ceremony.
is-
Are we then not going to put anything on the table for July for a later date? I just kind of want to know what we're
No,
telling people.
Oh, no, I think, because I'm fine with finding it another day. I mean, like I said, I personally, but I'm not a graduate right now. I would think completion and finale would be a big deal, but if you are hearing from the students that they would like a backup date, I mean, I don't really have a problem with that.
It's going to be 6, one half and dozen the other. I feel like the kids have gotten a little numb at this point.
Yeah,
To everything that they've not gotten to do. And I feel like they've definitely been very gracious, both they and their parents. I mean, we could put it out there in July and then still not get to do it. I mean, that's
Right.
the other thing too. And then these people have paid for caps and gowns. When are we going to have them be able to get those so they can do pictures? Because I'm assuming they will want them the day of the virtual ceremony. Would Graduate Services then want them to have those until July since we rent?
Right.
There's just a lot of things that go into that. I mean, I think if we put out there that right now, we don't see how we can plan an in-person ceremony and the ODE guidelines support that. We can go with the June 5th, and then maybe Brian and I and Michael and our CAPS team can frame something to do at homecoming or something. Recognize them at a football game. I don't know.
Right. Right. I didn't think about the logistics of keeping, a cap and gown until July. And by all, everything right now is pointing to social distancing continuing throughout the summer. So
Right.
the likelihood of that is just, it seems almost, there is there's not going to be that opportunity, but
I feel like having the plan for May 29th, I could then go ahead and arrange with Graduate Services that week for them to be there a day for the kids to come get their caps and gowns. Families can do pictures. They could have already picked up their diplomas because technically they will have already graduated. I mean, regardless of what day we do this, they will always been graduated May 15th because that's what it says on their diplomas. So they could even have their diploma in hand at home for the May 29th ceremony.
right. I'm wondering too, and I'm sorry, I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but it's so important. Is there any way to personalize
Very important right now.
this
Very
virtual ceremony, and I think I had talked to Mike about this and maybe put it in an email, just, if the kids wanted to do a personalized message that's, a couple bullet points about, something they want to say about their years at Franklin or their high school years or what they're doing after. Is there a way to do that is feasible technology wise? Whether if they're coming in to get their stuff, they could possibly do it then, and then that could be part of the virtual ceremony. I'm just, again, trying to throw stuff out to make it a little more special since we're probably not going to be doing in person.
I mean, Michelle Judy already does that big slideshow that plays before the ceremony, and that's where they do the baby pictures and things like that. I don't know if she and her yearbook staff would be willing to do something like that. But again, how do they do that and maintain social distance? I mean, I could ask her to start working on that and then maybe be available on the 7th for those that want to put a message in. I mean, that's something we can definitely talk about. But then
I'm sorry. They have voice notes now, if they wanted to do a voice note and send it in. I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to think of anything we possibly can.
I know. It's hard.
Rachel, didn't you share a link? I forget what school it was, but they actually brought in students like 4 or 5 at a time to do a hand a diploma and get a picture in front of a handful of people.
I think that is something they did, but when you look at the timing of that, it seems almost impossible. I saw one of the schools, they only had like 50 people in their graduating class. But if we do that if we have 212 kids and you're doing that, it's almost impossible time-wise to do that.
I did the quick math real quick on it, and if we could do 5 kids every 15 minutes in an 8-hour day, we could do 160 kids. If we broke that up over 2 days, we could probably maybe get all the kids through.
But what are
idea.
I guess, what are you, explain to me what they would do again?
So each kid would come in with 2 of their parents or something like that. They get to cross the stage, receive their diploma, get a video of it, get a picture in their cap and gown. And then the tough part is afterwards you've got, 180 kids worth of video shots you got to stitch together. But, at least there's something to walking across the stage and receiving that diploma, and there's a video of you doing that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is the one of those things I sent. But then how do we do the social distancing part of that and keeping it? Because, everything just gets kind of muddled.
There'd be a ton of logistics to get it to work out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But 5 kids in our auditorium, so that's 15 people that you're talking about every 15 minutes. That's more feasible than the stadium.
Right.
With 600 people at once.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so my audio is pretty bad. I hope you can understand me. I tried to switch. I couldn't.
I can.
I can hear you.
What about some type, I mean, this is an unprecedented time. What about some kind of commemoration for this class? I know at the Career Center, we're planning a field of sunflowers, one for each student. But something maybe somewhere on our property that, you know, is tangible, that they would know that, you know, it's a commemoration of what they have missed this year. You know, in honor of them, to know that we're thinking of them, you know what I mean? And that
Well, I
think
mean,
of
I
it
will,
at a regular graduation, but maybe there's some kind of commemorative something that we could do for this class as a district.
well, I would definitely have the funds to do something like that, Lori, if I'm not paying a large rental to Princeton Pike Church of God, because that's going to be,
Okay.
I mean.
Well, I'm not
at this-
talking about your budget, Kelly.
No, but I'm just saying there would be monies that I would even have to do something like that for the class. I like that. I actually really like that idea.
Yeah.
I think
that's
it's
a
a
neat idea.
wonderful idea. And I think it's something that is, you know, just more, is tangible. Because let's face it, we all want our kids to have their graduation, all of us do. But with these guidelines, it's almost impossible if it's not virtual.
Yeah.
Right.
At least they at one time in their life could go back and see that there was something there that commemorated their graduation.
The only thing I would say is I think it's a great idea. Is I would want something that could possibly be movable in case we build a new high school and we can move it to the new high school with us to commemorate that as well.
Exactly.
Actually, I had an idea. Michael came up with this idea earlier this week as we were talking about class gifts and things like that. And if you go to other schools, they usually have something out in front of the building, like a rock or something like that, that like the students can paint for like Spirit Week or something like that. So maybe that's something we could do. And, you know, in memory, you know, in tribute to the class of 2020, we could even put a plaque near it or something. And then Mike, that would be something then hopefully we could move to the new school if and when that happens. Just a thought. That was something that Michael and I had already been thinking about.
That's kind of cool. Yeah. And Andy too. Yeah. Cause I know with the in-person and walking across the stage too, I think I had sent that before the ODE opinion came out, which kind of changed things as well.
So just to recap, so I can let my people know, we're still going to do awards on May 15th, which will be scholarships and those sorts of things. So students can make those arrangements with universities and things like that. May 29th at 7 p.m., we will do a virtual graduation, and I'll work out with graduate services so that students can have their caps and gowns for that. And students will be able to pick up their diplomas ahead of time to have for that. And then are we looking to do the July, or do we want to look more to the fall, like homecoming or something like that? Or what do you guys think about something else?
I don't think I would want to go into the next school year.
The one thing I was thinking about that kind of goes with what Mr. Fleming was saying is that, you know, we've got that Franklin City Schools backdrop. Maybe when they turn in their things on the 7th, that if the caps and gowns, Mrs. Fromm, were available at that particular time, and we put 2 X's, you know, basically have 2 markers on the floor, one for you and maybe one for the graduate, and then have, bless you, and then have somebody, they could take a picture of the graduate in their cap and gown, holding on to the diploma. I know traditionally it's been with the board president, but due to work requirements, you know, if they did that maybe, you know, towards the auditorium, we put that up. Like I said, you two stay 6 feet apart and the photographer be apart so we could possibly get that picture. It won't be what Mr. Fleming was talking about as they walk across the stage, but would be a picture with you, their diploma and their cap and gown that might be meaningful to them.
Well, and honestly, once we get them their cap and gowns, I can make myself available for something like that anytime in the month of May. Like sign up for an appointment to get your picture taken at the high school, you know what I mean? If we even wanted to spread them out a little further than that, my fear is if we open that up to the whole class on the 7th that could turn into an unintended social gathering. But I mean, I'm working
Well, I
until
think
the
it-
end of June anyway, so I could do something like that.
Well, maybe set up like a Google Doc where they could
Yeah.
sign up for a time. We would just need to have a photographer that would be able to come and do that and take the picture, put it together.
And if Life Touch is not available, I know Bob Hogan has offered to do that. I just have to offer to them first since that's who we have the contract with.
Good.
The other thing with the May 7th, we could let them take the picture with the cover, but that's actually the grades are due that day. So we might have a couple kids and fees are still due. So we wouldn't actually give kids their diplomas on the 7th.
Right.
We would just have the cover.
Would the board like us to try to do something like that for the graduates?
I mean, I think that would be nice as long as, yeah, you're able to, you know, maintain the guidelines and all that good stuff. It might be nice, it would be nice to have a picture of them in their cap and gowns.
Right, especially there on that backdrop and stuff.
Right.
I'm supposed to contact Jamie Pruitt from Graduate Services tomorrow. I told him I would contact him after this meeting tonight. So I can find out then, I can let him know that we're gonna do the virtual ceremony May 29th and ask how soon we can have him available for kids to come get their caps and gowns. That ideally we'd like it to be May 7th, that he could be there while that's happening. And then we can let the kids know that they'll have the opportunity for those pictures and things like that ahead of time. And then the question he's gonna ask me though is the return date for caps and gowns. If we're not gonna do a ceremony at a later date, then I need to figure out cap and gown return, or not get caps, just gowns.
So Kelly, let me ask you this. I mean, do you think it's better off to not set a later date because of the cap and gown issue?
Well, the Career Center has set the later date for the 22nd. So I'm assuming our Career Center kids will still need their cap and gown. Right now, they normally get them in April and we don't graduate until May. So if I mean, we would just have to tell the kids if we set the date for like July 31st, just know you will not leave the stadium with your gown. Like, do all the other pictures and things ahead of time. But then if we end up not having that, then we have the logistics of collecting the gowns. That's the only thing. But that's not any money on the school. That's on the student. Like, they would get billed by Graduate Services if they don't return their gowns.
Okay.
I think it would still be nice to maybe try to do something at a later date. I see both sides of it. I mean, I don't have a graduate this year, but I try to think of those people that do. It'd be devastating. And this class is pretty special. I mean, they're all special, but this group is pretty special. I hate for them to not have something if we can.
Well, we have to do something. We have to. So we need to just decide and just, you know, make it concrete. We have to do something. Whether we have to do something either virtually, I mean, I'd like to do something virtually and some kind of commemoration for the class as well. That's my personal preference.
Well, I think, Lori, that's what we're definitely doing. We're definitely doing virtual. And I think the commemoration thing you said was yes as well. The question is, do we also have a later date as a backup if restrictions would ease and we'd be able to do an in-person like in July or August? But we're definitely going to do the virtual, and I think the commemoration thing you were talking about.
Right. Well, I mean, and we think the guidelines are going to remain in place by July, but by July, we as a group may be better. We may be better off like knowing the regulations and what to do to follow them, you know, because there'll be people before us that have done other things and had recognitions, ceremonies, and we would have some guidelines to go by, possibly by then. So we could at least have the July day. That's not into the next school year, and that's still the possibility that they may get an actual graduation.
Right. That was my thought as well, as we might as well just have it just in case.
Exactly.
So I know Dr. Sander proposed Thursday, July 30th.
And then maybe the rain date would be the 31st for a rain date.
Yeah.
And I think, Kelly, you know, when this goes out, you're going to have to explain that, you know, this is probably highly unlikely given what we're hearing. I just would hate for them to get their hopes up. but we're taking every avenue we can just in case.
With the board's permission, what I'll do in the morning is I'll reach out to Graduate Services and I'll check on caps and gowns, and I'll run everything we've talked about by Michael and make sure we have everything organized. And I will email something to the board for your approval before I make anything public. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That way I can just kind of synthesize everything we've been talking about. I'll outline it, and then in case I've missed something or before we make anything public. And I told everybody it'd be the middle to end of this week before we made anything public, because, you know, yes, we're talking tonight, but there's more that goes into that with other logistics behind the scenes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So any other discussion about graduation, or did we cover everything? All right. Thank you very much, Kelly, for being
Thank you guys. I
available.
really appreciate it. I know we're in uncharted waters. I appreciate your guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we will move on to Dr. Sanders' recommendations.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is 4A, which is it's a first read, and it is the list of potential graduates for the class of 2020.
All right.
And then if this is okay, I can bring that back on Monday the 4th for approval.
Yes.
Okay, next I'll be asking for the consent agenda. All these items were discussed at the board work session 2 weeks ago. I did want to pull out one. So what I'm asking for is approval on items B through H, and then J and K. Those items include the Chromebook policies that Ms. Hudson-East presented, the classified exempt calendars, the 2021 elementary student handbook, the K-6 school fees, the seamless summer lunch program, the lunch fees for next year, the community service and the community engagement seals, and then the board policy updates and the elementary music textbooks.
All right. I know we, as Mike said, these were first reads our last meeting. Is there any discussion or questions about those items? All right. Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve B through H and J and K.
So moved.
Mr. Sizemore, in a second. Mr. Fleming, Dr. Sander?
Yes.
Mr. Nipper?
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore?
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger?
Yes.
Okay, next, I asked for approval of the inauguration DC trip. There were two questions that were asked, and one was, could there be a second bus? And that answer was yes. And then the second, would there be able to be refunds? And that was yes, up except for the original $30 deposit. I got, Mrs. Fromm was gracious enough to get that for us the very next day. And so I just pulled that out in case there's any further discussion on that particular topic. And if there isn't, then I would ask for a board motion on that.
All right, any questions or discussion about that? I guess the only thing I would want to pass along, Dr. Sanders, just to make absolutely certain we have enough chaperones for something like that. I mean, we've seen before where people go to political events, take kids, and, you know, some pretty regrettable things happen. So we just want to make sure our kids are safe and away from anything that could be a problem.
Okay, I did note that, and I will share that with Mrs. Fromm.
Right. Okay, if there's no other discussion, Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Raleigh? Is there a second? Mr. Nipper? Dr. Sanders?
Mr. Nipper?
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore?
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Thank you. And next then goes to personnel recommendations. I would ask for consent agenda items for items 5A through C, which is the summer school staffing if necessary, the classified substitute, including the bus driver, and then the continuing contract for Mrs. Franklin and Mrs. Manis. And these were presented at the board work session.
Any discussion about A through C?
Yeah, Dr. Sanders, on the summer school, if for some reason we don't get started when we wanted to, it starts late, are those contracts, would they be prorated then? For that?
They would be paid, they're paid on the daily rate, Mr. Nipper, and if we don't have summer school, they wouldn't be paid. We just want to be set up for that. Now, in looking at I'm sorry.
My question was, if we don't start on time, but we can start later, we're still going to try to start as soon as we can, correct?
Correct. For example, probably the financial management, grad point, and speech could be done in a situation like this, so they could probably start on time. The PE, we have to wait till the guidelines change that we're allowed to have that. Mrs. Denisi did check with the for elementary, and if we need to move that back to July, we could do that. So they would be available then. So what we have to look at is just to see when it's available. But they wouldn't necessarily get the full salary. They would get the prorated depending on how many days we have summer school.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt 5A through C.
So moved.
Mr. Nipper, in a second.
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 Mr. Fleming, Dr. Sander,
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Okay. Item D is a first read. This is Stephanie Strong is our high school art teacher, and she's having her second child and is asking to take an unpaid child care leave of absence. And by contract, she is allowed to request that, but that would be an unpaid leave for the 2021 school year.
all right. Are we okay to bring that back for our next meeting?
Yeah, on the 5th.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. The next item is also first read, or I'm sorry, this is an action item. This is request that you hire Candace Parsons for the Hunter 6th grade ELA position, and that was discussed at the board work session.
All right, any discussion? All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Raleigh, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Nipper, Dr. Sander,
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is a first read, but as I put in my weekly update, I would gladly accept an action item. Like we had last time, these are two high need areas, and Mr. McFarland gave a very detailed presentation full of fun facts for everyone. And the only thing was missing was his laser pointer. We always look forward to that during his presentations. But this would be for Tiffany Hackey to be the part-time school psych, which is a .6 position for 120 days for the year. And then Megan McClure for the speech and language position, and that would be a full-time position. And so this is actually a first read, but if it's the desire of the board, I would appreciate action.
Any questions or discussion about that? All right, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
I think it was Mr. Nipper and Mr. Sizemore as a second.
Okay. Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Next is action item, that is the cleanup supplemental that the board hired the junior high wrestling assistant coach Daniel Watts. And that was discussed at the April 13th meeting.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Raleigh, and is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Nipper? Dr. Sander?
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sander. And now we will move on to the treasurer's portion of the agenda.
So good to get to know all of you tonight. I would like to request a consent on items A, B, and C under section 6. And those consist of the regular minutes from the meeting from March 23rd, the work session on April 13th, and the financials with the annual spending for the month of March 2020, the bills that were listed on the check pay for the month of March, financial reports and interest reports for the month of March, as well as 2 donations, a $25 donation from the American Income and Life Insurance Company for general purposes to Shank Elementary, and a donation from the St. Francis Episcopal Church for school fees for $156.26.
All right, thank you. Now, do we have any questions or discussion about those items? All right, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
So moved.
I
Second.
believe that was that Mr. Sizemore and second, Mr. Fleming? All right,
Yep.
Dr. Sander?
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, next up, we did have new business for the graduation, but we moved that up. So we are to reports and comments from the board members. Mr. Nipper, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, and I'll be really quick. Thanks for everybody for joining. Hope everybody's being safe and practicing social distancing. Thanks, Mr. Richter, for joining. And Ronnie, if I'm reading this correctly, is it 43,399 lunches that we served? A meal in the last 6 weeks?
Yeah, we're probably up over that now. We may be pushing 45,000 now. We're going to keep that running total. So at the end of this week, we have that amount. We're still around anywhere from 800, a little less, a little more some days, depending on it.
Right, that's fantastic.
It's
Tell
great.
someone- Yeah, tell someone, great job. I talked to a person that's, they're serving lunches through the Princeton schools, and they, for some reason, they hardly get any lunches served, and then they had to quit serving them. So I'm glad we're being able to take care of the kids. That's just absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, our kitchen staff and transportation staff have done a great job.
They have. Tell them thanks from me anyway.
Yep.
That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Nipper. And next up, we have Mrs. Raleigh.
Okay. Welcome, Rob. Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you virtually.
Thank you.
As our new treasurer. So thank you very much. Also, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the administration and the board for working so hard and diligently to try to take care of our seniors this year. They've missed so much already, and I know how badly we all want them to have some sort of completion of their school year and some type of graduation. So I appreciate all of you and your efforts and your extra time it's taken to do, to think of something to commemorate these kids here at Franklin City School District. And thank you to all the staff too as well for the meals. That's the service that is so needed in this area, and to make it available to everyone, needless, whether they're a student here or they're low income, it's just for everyone. And it's helping lots of families, that didn't have that in their budget because their kids are normally at school and eat lunch at school. So it's about so many families. I really want to express my gratitude to all of that staff, Rodney, and you as well for that. So that's all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mrs. Raleigh. And next up, we have Mr. Sizemore.
Thank everybody for joining us. Welcome, Rob. Thanks again, Rodney, and pass it along for all the efforts on the meals, like everyone said. I think the little technical glitches we've had just makes me have even more appreciation for our staff and teachers for the efforts that they're making to still connect with the kids, whether that's reading stories to them, going through lessons and that. And it's amazing. It's definitely a new frontier, and everybody's adapting and doing everything they can to do what's best for the students. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sizemore. Mr. Fleming.
Thanks for everyone, and hard to top all this. I had actually written down the number. It's pretty cool being on here because you can broadcast it. But big thanks. I'd like to echo what my fellow board members are saying. This means a whole lot to our community. Being able to provide for the kids when they're not in the schools. Families are experiencing job loss right now, so the extra meal helps out a ton right there. I'm working from home 3 days a week, and I'm looking out my front window at the road, and I love seeing the Franklin van zoom past there as it makes one of its stops. It's just pretty neat to see. So big thanks on that one. And I also appreciate everyone's really hard efforts to figure out the logistics of holding a graduation. Like Lori was saying, it really does mean a ton to these students to find a way to meaningfully celebrate their 13 years of achievements that bring them to this point. And I just appreciate everyone's thoughts and efforts to try and make something special for them. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Of course, I want to thank everybody as well for being here. And if there's anybody that's watching, we appreciate that. And I'll echo everybody's comments as far as the thank yous to everybody that's been impacted by this. So administration, staff, families, the kids themselves. It's hard on everyone. But I feel like our district has done a really good job of making it as easy as it can be. So, as a parent, as somebody on the board, I know I truly appreciate that. And as far as our meals go, that's really kind of a special note. because practically speaking, one of the things that has come out of this entire, pandemic issue is the drop in calls about child welfare check, child abuse, things of that nature, sorry, and being able to hand, their families these meals every day. A corollary, to that is being able to kind of check on them and seeing that they're okay, and knowing that at least there's this part of their day that's going to, have a good aspect to it, or it's got some normalcy to it, and we're able to see them and check in on them. So that's something that's kind of a different side effect of the food, but it gets the job done, and that's really important for us. So with that, and sorry if you could hear my kids. Rob, it's nice to see you in person. We appreciate what you're doing for us, and that's all I have. So,
Thank you.
the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
So
Mr.
moved.
Sizemore,
Second.
thank you. Mr. Fleming, second. Dr. Sander?
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh, Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
It's 7:16.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.